I didn't know
Oh,
him, no, I
yeah,
didn't.
but anyway, he got there, but not while we're down the creek yet. So, anyway, when I get back, Gene comes, and then him and I walk down there alone together. And boy, your grandpa was a heavy man, well, of course, limp. So we tried and tried and tried to get him out of that pit. What is it, 4 foot?
Yeah, down to the ledge.
Yeah, he was sitting on the floor with his feet straight out, you know, and sitting there. He was draining the pump. So finally, Gene and I get him out of that pit, and we, of course, couldn't lift him, so we got him over to the door, his head to the door. We knew he needed air, you know.
Right.
And not thinking how cold it was that night, you know, I suppose we pulled on him a little bit with his hands. And we had the door open, and they dropped him out. Well, you know, your dad froze the tips of his fingers down there, so you can imagine how cold it was that night.
Yeah.
Till he got it loaded up.
Right.
We not thinking, should never lift his hands, you know, his arms were extending out in the snow or the cold.
Right.
And anyway, Ed Lau shows up with his sleigh, and they put Bill in it, and they head up the hill. And then I go home, and I get my pony, and I ride up to Whelan's. And by that time, they had Doc Sedin on the phone. And he was telling them how to, at that time, nobody knew how to give mouth to mouth.
No.
He didn't either, I don't think. I mean, maybe he did, but. So they just said to do compressions on Bill's chest. Well, they had him on the floor, I remember in your dining room where it is now.
Yeah.
Kid, I still see that, and had him on the floor, and they were sit on him and, you know, push him, and got funny and break his ribs, but, you know, and Sedin was on the phone with one of the men, telling him to count to 3 years.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he started breathing.
Gee.
But the minute they would quit this,
Compressions.
quit. So they tell, Sedin says, well, the only way you're gonna keep him alive. Well, then the next thing was, gotta get him to the valley. So they call Hub Peterson, he was the old undertaker. His son took over after he left. You probably know him, that's Johnson.
Peterson Schultz.
Yeah, Hub was the old man, and then there was well, he's gone, and then now it's Johnson and Leroux.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so Hub, I think, came with a hearse. I don't, maybe they didn't have ambulances, you know, or whatever. But he came with that, but he couldn't get out there. See, so the county got a plow going, and it was Harold Risser. Do you remember any of the Rissers that lived at Sandburn? Well, they went.
Well, there's one that pushes the snow now, a risser out of Sanborn, that does the churchyard and stuff, if that's a coincidence.
It gotta be
or-
related, yeah, because they were over there. But they lived in, you remember the house that had the smiley face on going to Pat Heinze's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's where the Rissers came, they moved in there, it was vacant. And they walked with the Almond kids to school. I went to school with them, they walked
Okay.
over to Sibley. But anyway, he got in the plow and another man. They took two of them to run it. And of course, I don't think they had wings on them back then either. And they plowed and plowed and plowed and I mean, there was nothing to do. The Daisy Road was, the maintainer said there was no way it could open. He need cats to open
Right.
that. So you can imagine now, your dad or your grandpa's been out of this well, all this dang commotion. And up the sleigh ride on his back on straw up the hill.
Yeah.
Now you talk about an ambulance coming.
Yeah.
Time is a lot of essence. And so he's on the floor, till I would imagine, I don't think they got there at midnight yet with because they had held that, well then they made the mistake. When they came by, it'd be like Ole Whelan's burned or,
Yeah.
you know that road that comes south of the church?
Yeah.
Well, they were to turn there. Well, the dummies kept on going. They were going up to 26th and so. Well, that was so darn plugged by almonds that you could never get through it. So there was another man who came in this, in the meantime, Chris Larson. He was over, he and his dad lived and owned the farm and the land where Bob Reedman lived.
Okay.
So he rode a horse over too. He got it on the phone. He was one
Chris
of
Larson.
Chris Larson, you know. They were family, they left there. Bob Reedman, I think, bought it.
Okay.
But anyway, he rode, so, okay, now we got these dumb snowplow guys that are gonna try to get through there. And that road by Ollie's was, you know, that wasn't even hardly full of snow anymore or anything, so. Chris and I, we jump on our ponies, we got, you know, saddling on big old plow horses we were riding, and so we rode over, but the snow was so darn deep, the horses were belly deep in the snow. And we got about to where, I don't know, we didn't get to George's Hill yet. We got to Phil Kunze's Road
Yeah.
there. And we seen the plow turn around and go, and so we just stood there, we could see the lights, you know, God, in the night when it's that cold, it's just straight up like a star, you know. And so they come to conclusion, hey, you know, this guy in the plow finally said, hey, that road over there, so they came up that way. And that was a piece of cake. And they came right up there, and then, you know, I don't know, I suppose they went out to the road, and then came in.
Huh.
Well, now by this time, you know, that's a long time, I
Yeah.
don't know. They get there and they load Bill up.
So is it enclosed then? I mean, it's totally.
Oh, it was a
It's-
hearse, you
it
mean
was
that
a-
they were picking him up with.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was heated and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, it could have been his ambulance too, then, but I
Right.
don't know.
Is he breathing now?
Yeah, but he's not breathing unless they're compressing.
God.
He'd quit, he'd just absolutely,
keep
because I would
pushing.
stand there and you'd just see, he'd just, and soon he'd just get breathing again.
Gosh.
So anyway, then they put him in that, and that's the last I visually would see of Bill. And they left.
Right.
And Hub says, we gotta get going, you know. And he's like- So he heads out and goes, and the snowplow follows right behind him, okay? So Hub goes down, he gets to Ashtabula Hill, he can't get up it. And because the plow made such a fast trip out, they didn't lower the plow, you know, to.
Just enough to get them through.
Right, see him coming down the hill, I wouldn't have any trouble, but
Yeah.
going up he could. So they backed down and said, well, what the heck, the plow is right behind us. Well, them guys thought, what the heck, we're up north, why we're here, what the heck, why we go back to Valley, let's go up and plow out, all the farms up like Vernon Kunze and Dutch Reedman and all them, so they head north. So he sits down there idling, the thing.
The hearse or.
Yeah, and Bill was in there, so the guy in back must have been doing this, I don't know, see, I don't know anymore, that's too bad. So here he's down there, and he's waiting for the plow never comes. So, but you see the road, at that time, instead of coming down where the new road is, it used to go south, and then come down to the bridge. So you'd be actually on the south side of the cafe down there yet. I mean, that road went way down.
Right.
So when you came straight up the hill, you would go right to Willie Curtis's.
Yep.
So, but Hub got out there, and of course, he wasn't dressed for this kind of weather, got a hat on, he walks to Willie Curtis's to get some, to pull him up the hill, you know. And while he's gone, the guy watching the thing, probably he was in the back, no, I'm just assuming, working on Bill, the car stops.
Wow.
So, here he is, Bill is in there, and no heat now.
No heat.
And of course, Hub is up with Willie's, and you know Willie, you can imagine what it took to get something going there. But I don't know. So anyway, they got back, and they got the car up the hill and went to Valley. I think it was 5 in the morning
God.
when they got to Valley.
So this is like 12 hours later or something.
Yeah, so it had to be from, you had to get down there 6:30, you know, to
Right.
drain that thing. And he got, but look at all, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, now they say in 10 minutes are the big, you know, important time, or 15.
Right. There you go.
But I was just thinking how strong a man he must have been.
Yeah.
But I just, to start out there in a sleigh and a bunch of straw, and,
Well, 30 below riding a pony up the hill.
Yeah, you too.
oh, it's,
You know, what kind of glove? Because we just rode our pony. Carol was home, and we just rode him around the farm on, I want to say Sunday. And I didn't have long johns or nothing on, but just riding him around for 15 minutes, my legs were just like, when I got off, like,
well,
holy
we had
crap.
winter underwear on, you know, and then.
Right.
And we had big overcoats, you know, the ones with the collar on,
Yeah.
and stocking caps. But we were out all the time, so you know, I don't.
Right. You never got cold.
Well, it got darn cold that night, I know, but
Yeah.
But the excitement of the night, I think, drives